5 minutes providing a brief project description of your scenario, what the decision space was, the outreach action plan, and then we can talk about what we all think as a collective about the outreach strategies. And then we'll answer any questions after we all go through each of the scenarios. So team one, who would like to go?
We did not pick a presenter. Does anyone want to be a presenter? Team one.
Why don't you go ahead and do it, Kate? Why don't you do it? You were right.
No, Kate can't do it. I'm disqualifying her, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, but the group didn't. The group didn't disqualify her.
All right, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Thank you.
Shrink my screen. Okay, so team number one was transit service changes. So a summary of the challenges with transit ridership in the times of COVID are having to shrink down the service with limited routes and stops. Some challenges getting drivers with folks being out because of being sick with COVID, and then limited bus capacity. So just we're not allowing the buses to be fully packed. And there's another challenge that it just left my mind. But so we need to be able to tell the community about transit service changes. So some of the outreach deliverables we thought of was building a stakeholder list. So that included working with customer service, dial a ride, working with the advocacy groups to get the word out, because we think they have a pretty good following. Walking the bus routes and seeing if there's any new developments, to look for new contact names that way we might need to get a hold of. And then working with the local colleges, schools, and possibly large medical centers to find contacts at all these places so we can start informing them. Some of the other things, I'm trying to go through schedule here too. So that's obviously, you need to know who you're talking to. We also want to get the word out that transit is safe to ride. There's a lot of, has been a lot of misconception that transit is dirty and maybe you'll catch COVID on the bus. And so we definitely want to get messaging out that says, you're okay to ride, we're masking people up and stuff like that. We know how it transmits at this point. Working with the digital apps to get the route changes on Google Maps and the transit app and all those different methods that people use to travel around, and using those posters at getting them up at stops and shelters, and then also involving the business community and kind of leveraging your Chamber of Commerce's and seeing if there can be some not rewards, but incentives for taking transit. And then the last thing, and probably most important, is the time at the time of the service changes, having folks available at the bus stop, so multilingual ambassadors to help get that final word out and help those lost transit riders find their way. And that's probably the most labor heavy part, but you can use that with paid MTA or paid agency staff, or someone had suggested seeing if you can get volunteers from universities or people looking for volunteer hours, because they're, it's a big city, there are lots of locations to staff. I think that about covers it for our group, if anyone else wants to add on.
Great job. Thank you, Lauren. I think one thing to just underscore is the group really acknowledged that we need to be multi-channel because different people get their information in different ways. So we kind of have to be in every type of communication, and also multilingual, especially on the ambassadors on day of. If you can have multilingual ambassadors out there, and if you can make sure information is available in the languages that your community members communicate in.
Good job, team one. How about team two? Or does anyone have anything to say before we move on to team two? Any comments on this? I'm giving myself 10 sec. I don't think I did give myself 10 seconds though. So I'm giving myself 5 more seconds before I say anything. And then that way the introverts can maybe feel more comfortable speaking up if they'd like. Okay, team 2, who would like to represent team 2?
Hello, I guess I'll go. So for our scenario 2, we had a near-term capital project, and this was like an effort to reduce traffic fatalities on like a high injury corridor. So the aim was to like create a safer street for all users of the road, but like to emphasize on the vulnerable road users like pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit riders. And then the scope of the project might include things like upgrading the bike lane to like a parking protected one, and like having safety painted safety zones or like signal timing changes so that people have more time to walk across the street. So our decision space was mostly just like consulting people on like the pieces of the scope and then informing on other parts of the scope and then collaborating on types of improvements. Our decision outreach action plan. So the first thing that we figured we should do is just to like complete a list of stakeholders just to see where the information needs to go to and identify funding. Also for hiring translators because one of the stakeholders that were specified was non-native English speaking communities, and several were listed from different languages. And so another idea that we came up with was using infographics because these are fairly universal in being able to communicate messages. And in terms of outreach, also, we thought of meeting in person, like with these people from disadvantaged communities, hopefully like with a translator, and also to outreach through school districts. Information can be disseminated through the kids who are at school, and they can also like talk to their parents about these issues. Or also community leaders who are heavily involved in the community. If we don't know who to reach out to, these people usually already have like a network of people that they can help to disseminate information to. In addition, we just thought of other things like mailers or using like CVOs and CSOs, and then also having things like virtual sessions online on things like Zoom, platforms like Zoom, like this one. Very helpful in terms of convenience, and also holding like walk-in tours so that people can like really see what things are going to be going on in the project.
Sorry, I want to unmute, and so when I click on the screen instead of the mute button, it goes to the next slide. Anyway, Justin, that was really great. That's awesome. I do see some themes coming out. We have multi-channel, we have multiple different types of stakeholders, especially depending on community leaders, because we cannot just depend on one format of outreach. We can't just expect that everyone will be able to get a mailer or they'll see something on the website. And so I really appreciate that y'all have been providing really good variety in the types of strategies that you've been proposing. Any other thoughts about this?
I think something that my group mentioned was, providing multiple opportunities for people to provide feedback rather than, perhaps culminating in a singular event. And I think that's really great because people are going to be providing feedback to you in different ways, no matter, whether you like it or not sometimes.
Yes.
And I think it's really important to create those opportunities. And another thing that my group mentioned is kind of like, maybe not starting from scratch and seeking out who are the community experts who already know sort of the lay of the land. They already have existing relationships that you can kind of build a bridge to.
And y'all talked about funding because translations are not cheap. That was a really interesting thought to think about. I mean, it's worth it though. And one thing actually I can mention is that for one of the projects we worked on, we provided a story map and a monolingual virtual breakout sessions. And the turnout for that first project wasn't that high, but then on our following project, that turnout was huge. We had like 30 people come to the Spanish monolingual event on Zoom. So it may not pay off immediately, but it really does create a place of trust, a foundation of trust. So thank you. Team 3.
Yes, hi, I will start our summary. So we were the Slow Streets consultation team. So our task was to notify and educate several different neighborhoods that are really different and have very different demographics and existing conditions about the city's Slow Streets initiative, share what streets would or would not be coming to their neighborhood, and find out how they felt about the program and about the locations. And our space is that, we're really in a notification sort of space, but so that we are really open to input and feedback on the locations and interventions. And if there was no slow street option available, being open to hearing about other types of interventions that and needs that the community has. So we had a lot of the similar techniques and strategies that have already been highlighted. I'll just note that our 3 different communities that were identified for our scenario. One was majority white and affluent, with like a really ideal geographic layout for the program. So because of the way they're more conducive to slow streets already. So then there's another area, which is largely people experiencing homelessness, non-permanent residents, more overcrowded housing, and multilingual community. And then the third was also sort of a lower density, majority white community. Streets were not on a grid, so less and more hilly, so less conducive to the program. So really trying to communicate different issues in different areas. I think that we didn't come up with an exact schedule or approach. I'd say the phase 1 of what we discussed can maybe be summarized in getting to know where we were trying to work. So understanding the historical context, existing conditions, are there certain community members that may or may not trust local government? What have been their experiences? Even if we were able to reach them, would we be able to really communicate them? So just kind of taking that equity lens to the work, engaging our community leaders to understand what the best methods of reaching our stakeholders would be. So kind of like phase 1, getting to know, I think, what's going on and who we can reach out to, and then also perhaps what the preferred forms of communication would be. So definitely recognizing the need for multilingual collateral in addition to different mechanisms. So we would expect that our more affluent, internet savvy community potentially would be comfortable using a website with an interactive story map, but in our other neighborhood, more door-to-door outreach with physical paper comment forms, posters, mailers would maybe be a preferred method of communication. And maybe that's it. Anything else that anybody wants to add, group?
I thought that was great. I mean, we're also on the same team, so good job, team 3. Any insights from what Shayda talked about?
No, just a thought, I guess. It didn't occur to me, thinking about like the historical context of neighborhoods and being sensitive to those who, trust government or don't trust government, and how you navigate that process. Because slow streets, I live in San Francisco, slow streets definitely look different depending on the neighborhood, and some are probably more accepted than others.
I was just going to say that I think that, I haven't quite researched enough or come across something that really like kind of shows that, you know, planning and government intervention has set us on this course where it's like, it's easy to do some things in certain places because the infrastructure is already there, and it's harder to go back in other contexts. Like, we can't plant trees in certain areas because we just never built them with parkways. And so it's like, what, you know, the magnitude of intervention that might be needed to actually meet a community need can look so different, but is really necessary to address those historical, you know, policies and inequities. But it is hard to communicate it quickly and easily and digestibly. So if anybody has resources like that, please do share.
Yeah, I mean, just talking to people, that's like really the best starting guide. And I know this doesn't sound like a really like sexy way of doing it, but like just providing that insight to let them know that we know what the situation is. Like and in this context for the slow streets, like Tenderloin really wanted a slow street. They had the highest, every street on their in the neighborhood was on the high entry network. And so they're like, why can't we slow down cars? And we provided another method of improving that, being able to provide more walking space in terms of concrete barriers. It's a little bit of a different type of infrastructure than A-frame signs and plastic bollards. So, but making sure that we communicate with the public about that and letting them know that, like, maybe it's not going to be what the Slow Streets program provides, but it will be something we wanted to be able to provide you as well, so you can be able to safely walk while people are waiting in line for services and whatnot. So that was great. I think, as I mentioned before, building the trust may not start with that one project. It will be probably the following projects, but just showing that you are willing to commit the time to hearing their feedback is really important. So I think we're 1 minute away. We wanted to provide a survey for y'all to fill out. I don't know if we have time to do it, but the survey just asks you, which of the following strategies would you likely incorporate into your work going forward? So I can post the link in the chat. Oops. And then maybe we can just or follow up in an email after the event to all the goers, the attendees, about like what it looks like after this. It's just like an easy way to commit to what you think is something you would be willing to do moving forward in whatever project you work on. Even if you work at a consulting firm, you may at some point be involved in outreach. So yeah, putting in the time and commitment to doing that will only make your project more successful. Well, with that, thanks everybody for coming to this event. Sorry we don't have time for questions, but we really, really appreciate everyone participating. I really enjoyed it. This is like one of my favorite ones so far. We've done it 4 times, so thank you again. And any other last words to the rest of the team?
Just want to say thank you to Shayda and the team, Kate and Jen. Thank you so much. That was awesome. The board will send a follow-up email with everyone's contact information, as well as that survey. And we'll just have folks reach out to you if they have more questions. But I thought this was really, really awesome and interactive, and definitely woke me up at this lunch hour. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
ITE folks, look out for an announcement for next month's meeting. We're still working on the speaker, but hope to have something for the 3rd or 4th week of March. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Great presentation.
Thank
Great
you.
workshop.